For the past several years, Kings Island has made a tradition of making the fireworks just a little more special, and this year is no exception. In fact, it might actually be quite a bit more than most other years have been. Hello, everybody. Alongside Don Helbig, I'm Ryan Sir, and this is Tower Topics.
Tower Topics is a podcast by Kings Island fans for Kings Island fans because that's who we are and that's who we care about. So, Ryan, Under the Stars, we had a chance to experience the new nighttime show. What are your initial thoughts?
So I'll tell you this. There's certain things that, we record a lot of these episodes, and often my reaction is this will be interesting. Or if we have a guest on, sometimes they'll be like, oh, maybe I'll learn something. This is one of the episodes where I've been excited for days to record it. I want to have this conversation about this show. And I'll say that as far as a nightly show is concerned, my socks were officially blown off in so many ways. I think this is just such a showcase of what Kings Island can do. Let's get this out of the way. It's not Fun Fireworks in 50. Nobody expected Fun Fireworks in 50 to be there after that 1 year. But as far as a nightly show is concerned, you finally got to see this, Don. Is your mind blown or what?
I mean, absolutely. I think, you mentioned Fun Fireworks in 50. I think that one had, more length to it. But there are elements of this show that I think I like better. I think there's better utilization of the drones. They're more a part of the show from start to finish. They don't disappear for, parts of the show like they did for Fun Fireworks in 50 or even last year's show. So I think the package, what they put together here, is really good, really strong. And in a lot of ways, to me, it's the best nighttime show that they've had there. You got to take away the Fun Fireworks in 50 again, just because of the length and all the different things going through the whole park's history and that it did, the storytelling component of that one. But when you're just talking about nighttime shows, I was blown away by this one.
This is, again, it's such a good representation of the amount of talent that they have there. Because obviously there's some elements of this that were contracted out. But for the most part, though, most of this was done by internal people, and just the stuff that they did with the drones. There was arguments as to if they were the same drones or not, because it's so improved, So
it is, and they would do make great use of the lasers during the show. Different parts of it, do celebrate different attractions having anniversaries this year. The Beast 45, you've got Diamondback 15, Banshees 10, and Vertigo celebrating an anniversary. So they've done a very good job of incorporating park history, into this one. And what I really like about this one, Ryan, is the song that goes along with this, that the music track was something that was done for Kings Island, so you're not going to find this song anywhere else, out on the, radio or, iTunes, wherever. It's because it's, it was done particularly for this show. And I think it makes it unique to Kings Island and, adds a nice touch.
I cannot believe that they continued to use an original song, because the cost for that is much, much more than nothing. But you mentioned that they celebrate the ride anniversaries. The use of the drones to create the logos and stuff, I thought was really, really cool.
And then you got the years, like the Eiffel Tower is putting a little bit of thing, so for the Beast of 45, scrolls up the Eiffel Tower. So I think it was a nice effect. And you can also tell, if guests are into the show, because they're not, just looking at their phone, they're not ready to head to the exit or something. People stood around afterward, they applauded and, they were impressed with what they saw, and they're looking back on their phone at the pictures and the video that they took. And I think that's a good thing.
Yeah. I saw the reaction, the first night of it, and just the roar of the crowd. It reminded me of Fun Fireworks. Actually, Fun Fireworks in 50 was a different sound, because people were just like, what did I just see? What just happened? They were taking on such a ride. But then it evolved into, a roaring applause and so on. But this was just like people went nuts at the end. And it's just so spectacular.
It has a good energy to it, I think with the song
Yeah.
and everything kind of fits together, and it's a great way to cap off a fun and memorable day at the park when you watch this show. So if you're going to Kings Island, you have to stick around till the park closes and watch Under the Stars. And I think a lot of different places in the park that you can, see the fireworks and that. But if you really want to see, the way the drones are incorporated into the show and the lasers, you got to be on International Street, kind of like facing the ID sign there where it says Kings Island in front of the fountains.
Yeah, that main plaza when you walk into the park, that's exactly where you want to be. So I'd say the most fair comparison to this show would be last year's Adventure Awaits. Let's take a moment to compare and contrast the two, because I will say that I did enjoy Adventure Awaits, but I kind of felt like it left something to be desired, and I think it was no fault of its own. I think that it was Fun Fireworks in 50 and then Adventure Awaits, and it's like, what the heck is this? But this one kind of encapsulates a lot of the energy that Fun Fireworks in 50 had.
Yeah, and like I said earlier in the show here, the big thing for me that was notable from last year to this year is just the way that the drones are more involved throughout the show.
Yeah, they are. There's still 200 drones. My understanding is that the difference is that they did a firmware upgrade, and I guess that makes a difference. But I guess I know that I held this from you, but I imagine most of the people that are listening to this have seen the show so far. If not, then spoiler alerts ahead. But at the beginning, there's like almost like twinkles that go across the sky. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah.
And I was like, the first time I watched it, I was like, how do they do that? There's no way that's drones. It's drones. And then the drones are able to, from being that far apart and so on, get into position where they can actually create these different emblems and so on. But the drones get better every time. Like, I think last year's Adventure Awaits did better with the drones than Fun Fireworks in 50 did, simply because the people at Rosie's, the people at Kings Island are getting better at utilizing them. They're getting more experience with them. But this one is definitely, of the three, the best use of the drones by a long shot.
Oh, absolutely. And the one thing I would advise anyone that has not seen the show is don't check it out on YouTube. There's a lot of people that have already put it out on YouTube. I didn't want to check it out until I saw the show, and then I went back and watched a couple of different of the YouTube channels that are out there that have put the show on. It doesn't even come close to to what you see and experience and feel when you're inside the park when you watch it on YouTube.
Yeah, it's like a POV of a roller coaster. Yeah, you can see it, but you're not experiencing it.
Don't do that. Just watch the show first. Just wait. Look at the pictures. The pictures are great. That's fine. But you have to experience it. And just you're just kind of immersed in it's an experience. To watch the show. It's not just a show. I mean, it's an experience.
Yeah, and it's true. They used a lot less lasers this time. But you made the argument that maybe more lasers would take away from the drones. Like maybe that was some sort of like creative decision or something. Where I see an argument for that.
Yeah, I think it would, just based on where they went and crossed the tower and that. And I think what they've done here in the show when they do use the lasers, it's at a time when the drones are changing into something else, so it's not distracting from the drones.
Well, and a little goes a long way. If you why buy the cow when you get the milk for free? The kind of situation where if they're throwing out lasers at all times, especially the ones shooting from the 50-foot, is what I'm talking about specifically. It's not going to be special when it does happen. So I think they did a very good job of kind of like holding that card until the right moment.
Yeah, but it's definitely elevated the nighttime shows at Kings Island the last few years with the use of the drones and what they're doing, with the fireworks, and now with the, original song that is done just for this show, for Kings Island. So, every year it just gets better and better. And you definitely have to check it out when you're going to Kings Island. Make sure you stick around until the park closes. if you're a pass holder, just come on up at 8 or 9 o'clock, catch a couple of quick rides and then, just watch the show. I mean, it's definitely worth making that trip out there just for this.
Yeah, it truly is spectacular. I'm already looking forward to the next time I get to watch it, to be honest with you. It was funny because I'm sure that you know about this, and anybody the listeners might know, but if you bring somebody to Kings Island or even like Disney or anything like that for the first time, there's a certain excitement that through osmosis comes to you, where you're excited that they're excited and you get to see the park in a new way through their eyes. I was looking forward to watching this with you for the first time on Monday because you hadn't seen it yet.
Well, I didn't see the fireworks and the drones, but I saw the different lasers and different components of it. The song of that, I got to see that during the American Coaster Enthusiast Spring Conference. They gave us a sneak peek at that, and I got to see what happened, with the Eiffel Tower and that. But to see the whole show, the full, everything going with it, I mean, it was spectacular. It's certainly something, that opportunity that I think, because they've been doing fireworks at Kings Island nighttime shows since 1972, that a lot of people just kind of take for granted, but they shouldn't, because this is a special opportunity that you have every time you go to the park to be able to see something of this level, being done, and just a great way to cap off your night. And you don't see that at a lot of parks where, park closes and that's it. Goodbye, good night. So I think, just, since 1972, just that commitment the park has to just capping off everyone's visit in this kind of a fashion with a spectacular nighttime show.
Yeah. And so the real question, though, is that they're really setting the bar high. Like, what if they get into a situation where they can't do stuff like this anymore? Like, they're stuck doing it. Like, they're going to have to cut elsewhere rather than not have drones or not have fireworks or whatever. Because
I think you'd have to. I mean, just because it's been part of the Kings Island experience, on those nighttime closes at 10 o'clock or later, that there has been some kind of a, fireworks, now drones, added into it. There's always been that, and it's a guest expectation. So yeah, you're right. Something would have to be cut somewhere else. You cannot, forego the nighttime show. It's part of the Kings Island experience. It's like blue ice cream. It has to be there.
Absolutely. So every night the park closes at 10. They got Under the Stars. So definitely check that out. It's worth getting in the traffic in the parking lot. Trust me. I know a lot of people leave at like 9:30 for that reason. Don't do it this year. You have to check it out. So not going to list everybody involved. There's, so many people involved in doing this, but every single one of them, this is you at your best. Congratulations. You made the park proud. You made the guests proud of the park on your behalf. Just such a fantastic show. And can't wait to see what the future brings at this point, because how are you going to top this? Yeah.
Right.
Awesome. Well, let's move on to the listener question. So our first listener question is from Elijah Maccabee. He says, what are some of the things that you feel KI does better currently than ever before? And what are some things that KI used to be better at in the past? For example, the food is a lot better, but I feel like the shows of the past looked better. Valid points.
Well, I think the first thing, is just what we talked about, what they do better than ever before, and that's the nighttime show. Like, it's getting better every year. I mean, this is better than last year. I like, there's things about it I like better than Fun Fireworks and 50. So I think that part of it is something that they do better than ever before. Elijah touches on the food. I think the food there is, some of the best that you're going to find in the amusement theme park industry. So I think that they're doing better than before. But what do you think, Ryan?
I mean, the night show is definitely up there. But to its credit, though, a lot of technology's evolved from like 1980. They wouldn't be able to do this, but the food is definitely a lot better. We've talked about how there's like a little bit of a quality variance the last couple of years, but nonetheless, the food at its worst right now is still better than the food at its best in 2006. Like,
oh, absolutely.
Down, but what do they do worse now than they did before? Yeah, you made a good point with some of the live shows, but
you go back to the 70s and 80s. I mean, the shows were actually things that they would do standalone TV commercials just for the shows.
Yeah.
And I can remember seeing commercials in the 70s for some of the shows. I remember in the 80s there was TV spots just to come see Gotta Dance, in the Kings Island Theater. So you're not at that level. You're not having those Broadway style shows anymore. But I think you look at the bandstand and all the technology and that's being incorporated into that. I think that bandstand show is on par or better than what it had been. You pick the decade there, for what's going on with that. But so whether they're not doing as well, I think for me, Ryan, I would say maybe it's communication.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of times when it's kind of like a lot of this stuff, when we're not talking about communication in terms of like the broader aspects of communication, but just like an example is that it said on for today, as of this recording, that there's no fireworks show. And then it took a podcast, I don't know which one, to tweet about it saying like, is there no fireworks? Like, what are we missing? And then, oh, wait a minute, we fixed it,
Yeah,
So
moments later, it's fixed. Yeah, there's been a number of those things that aren't
yeah.
updated, where they had been, or maybe some other, ride closures, when there was going to be a ride down for an extended period of time, especially if it's a marquee attraction. If it's
Yeah.
the Monster, the Scrambler, nobody's buying a ticket specifically for those rides, or, a season pass holder, planning their visit because I just, all I'm focused on is the Scrambler. Got to get my Scrambler rides in. But when you have the Beast, it's down for several days in a row, and that it's going to be down for several days in a row. A lot of guests build their visits around that ride. Those are the kind of things that, I think the park doesn't do as well as maybe it once did in terms of letting guests know that this ride's not going to be available right now. And I think something like that, maybe you don't want the negative, publicity or something like that. You're afraid of that.
Yeah.
But, you don't have to say what the reason is. You just have to let people know that it's not available. I think those are the kind of things that you'd like to see them get back to being better at in terms of, just communicating that kind of information.
Yeah. And it's like another thing that kind of comes to mind too is like when the Food and Wine Festival was announced, it was it was almost like it was a D23 thing. It was almost like an idea rather than an announcement, because I remember people were messaging me on X and so on saying like, so is this like a tasting card that you can get, or I don't know, it doesn't say like it. I'm not entirely certain that the initial announcement said that it was free to get into either. Somebody was asking about that. We do know, by the way, now that it's free with season pass as well as park admission. But it's I saw the menu that was released via social media, but I just feel like a description of the food would probably have gone a lot further with pictures. Because a lot of this stuff, if you're going to get like fancy hoity-toity stuff, I need to see a picture of it to see if it looks appetizing. I don't speak French, all right, so I can't tell you what I'm.
So you're saying one of the things that they don't do as well as they used to is the attention to detail and what they're releasing and letting everybody know exactly what this experience entails. It's kind of like piecemealed a lot of times.
Yeah, the feeling I got was that like that was announced and they didn't intend to announce it or something like that, because it just felt like a lot of the detail. Like if you made that announcement, wouldn't you want to announce the food along with it, the food and wine along with it, so that can be incorporated into the story to be a sales point? But
yeah,
it
I
wasn't.
mean, I
It
know
was,
a lot of other places when they announce something like that, a new festival, a new event or whatever, it's all the details are there, right up front. It just doesn't go on a website as, this is happening on these dates, more information to come.
yeah. So but okay, now I want to contrast it with like Tricks and Treats, where the initial announcement that comes out inherently every year is that live entertainment, special food, and so on. But the special food is just it's a facet of it. So when the menu is released, a few weeks later, it can be its own story. But with this, it's a food and wine festival, but there was no indication of what you were getting or how you were paying for it or how it was that leads me to believe that they may not have known at the time when they announced it, which makes me think that maybe it was announced earlier than anticipated. I don't
Yeah,
know.
but I think though, we're talking about, things that they could do, they used to do better and could do better now again today. This might come across as like, Brian and I nitpicking, and that the park does so many things, extremely well. And
Mm-hmm.
that, but when you're asked that question, we have to think about, okay, what do we see, from our point of view as guests now that visit the park frequently.
Yeah, and I mean, just to balance this out with positivity, Kings Island operations are the finest in the industry. If you ask anybody in the know, I'm saying industry people, not like your local enthusiasts, they'll tell you that Kings Island has for a long time had the finest, uh, operations in the industry. The safety record's pretty impeccable. The park is very safe. There's a lot of stuff that's just tentpole stuff that a lot of other parks don't get right that Kings Island does consistently. So don't think that if we're talking about like they didn't put the fireworks show on the app, we're saying that it's like this terrible, horrible place and they're all incompetent. It's just like, you asked, you said, what did they do better in the past? And we're telling you the answer.
Yeah, well, we knew we were going to talk about, the nighttime show Under the Stars, so you're looking at the website and the app, and you're looking to see if there's anything we can add, taking that information that's out there, and you notice right away, hey, no shows today. Well, wait a minute, it's a 10 o'clock close. Why aren't there any shows today? And then after it gets posted out there asking about that, then it's quickly added to the app. So it's just little things like that, that attention to detail, that maybe has slipped a little bit from what it used to be.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's go on to the next question before we get ourselves in trouble. This question's from Lindsay. She said, there are no acts scheduled for Timberwolf this year, including Spirit Song. Should we read anything into that?
I don't think you should right now at the moment read into that. That means that its days are numbered or anything. I think what you have to look at is, number one, budgets. So how much money do you have to spend, right? So maybe there's not enough money to bring in these different acts. But also, when Timberwolf opened in 1982 and throughout the 80s and a little bit beyond, you had somebody dedicated. That was their job, to run Timberwolf, to book these acts and do all those kind of things. You don't have a designated person for that. It takes a lot of work. You can't just approach somebody in March or April and say, hey, you want to do a concert in June or July? Well, these acts, they're all booked, that far in advance. Yeah. So you have to almost start like in August of this year if you're trying to bring in somebody in June or July next year. So you have to have someone in place to be doing that for you. They have contracted people, on the outside to do some of that for them, but you really need an in-house person if you're going to, utilize Timberwolf the way it can be utilized. So I would not read into it. I don't think that's the reason there's nothing there for this year. What are your thoughts, Ryan?
I'm going to play devil's advocate here and say that Carowinds is having a very large concert series. And I think if that's successful, they're going to come back to Kings Island and be like, all right, we're going to try this again and we're going to do it right this time. I will say that when they had the concerts, I went to about half of them. I had a great time at those concerts. I bought the VIP highest level tickets for all of them.
Yeah.
Which it wasn't that expensive. It was like $60 or $70. And you could go like to this like patio area, which is like essentially backstage. And like the Verve pipe when they opened for Five for Fighting, just kind of, there wasn't anybody there because there was a horrible storm. So most of the people with tickets didn't show up. But they just kind of like hung out there. We got to hang out with them and stuff. I'm not saying that's going to be the experience every time, but I think I'm a huge fan of the Timberwolf. I really hope it comes back. I'd rather have concerts there every year than have a new coaster there, to be honest with you. But the fact that Carowinds is doing this concert thing tells me that the story's not over for concerts at the parks, because if it's successful there, they're not going to think that concerts don't work at theme parks. They're going to think concerts didn't work at Kings Island. What do we need to do to fix that?
Yeah. And they're like, during my time there, I was never asked about, my thoughts on the concerts or how we should go about booking acts and everything, because everyone saw me as a PR or social person. But I worked at Cincinnati Gardens. We did book different concerts and acts there. rodeos and all kinds of things. But I knew how much time in advance we had to reach out to these acts to bring them in.
Yes.
And you cannot do it, in the spring, March, April. For that summer, you got to start. Like if you're going to do something next year, you got to start in July and August, reaching out to these acts and get them booked if you want to do it. And you also have to, you just can't stick your foot in the water and let's see if it works this time. You got to jump all in and just be committed to it. And if they were to do that again, I think it could be a very successful venue. They did a lot of work, refurbishing the place a little bit. Anyone that saw it in 2022. Last year for Spirit Song. I mean, you've seen they got the nice VIP area now and the new benches and that. So, I mean, it's a nice facility. I mean, it's ready to go. You just have to make that commitment and want to make that part of your summer lineup is maybe those Friday night concerts or something.
Friday or Saturday nights, you can have these acts. And this is kind of what they did. I imagine that like Skillet's probably kind of expensive. Three Doors Down isn't cheap, but a lot of the other concerts are kind of like past their heyday, like Five for Fighting and Verve Pipe. Like they were popular 25 years ago. That was probably a manageable amount of money to bring them in. And there were some like Flock of Seagulls that there were a lot of people there, but I remember them giving away tickets like they were paper. They totally papered the event, but Flock of Seagull, they're known for having a song on the Top Gun soundtrack from when was Top Gun? 1988, 89, sometime around then. Not 1993. I know somebody's going to correct me on that. That's a different Top Gun. But I think you bring in, heck, if you want to bring in like an Elvis tribute band or something like that, like you could do that. And, you could have a sliding scale where it's $5 to get in for some stuff, and if you've got your Skillets or whatever, you can charge $60, or Three Doors Down will be $60 or whatever. I think that there's a lot of potential, and I think that Kings Island has an insane amount of infrastructure for something like this, and it would be a fantastic benefit to the park to make successful concert runs.
Yeah, and Cincinnati and Kings Island, it's just this area where we live, nostalgia sells. So, whether it's the Reds or, Kings Island, the nostalgia piece, whenever you incorporate that, it works. So you look at Timberwolf's history and, you find some of those acts, bands that have performed at Timberwolf. There's going to be people that have memories of going there and that. And, those are the kind of people that would come back out to see them again.
Yeah, I agree. I'm actually kind of thinking of like, a lot of like the Universal Orlando Mardi Gras lineup would be really good. I saw Bare Naked Ladies. So that's a band that it drew a huge crowd at Universal Orlando, but it was all people that were like 35 to 45 years old that remember them from when they were popular.
Yeah.
They're not smashing the hits anymore, but they have 3 or 4 good songs that we remember from when we were in high school or whatever. Bands like that would be perfect for it because they're not necessarily like like maybe you can. I know that you weren't there for much of the concert run. Like as far as an employee, you did Weird Al, Spirit Song, the Sean Hannity thing, and then the 2022 stuff. But like as a guest, do you recall like did they ever have it like, oh, Three Doors Down's playing tonight, I'll buy a ticket while I'm here? Was it ever a situation like that, or did people specifically go to the park because they had a ticket to Three Doors Down?
You could buy your tickets. At the park that day. They weren't that expensive. They were anywhere from like $9.95 to maybe $14 in that range, in the 80s and 90s with it. So you could just buy a ticket, if you had a season pass, or you could, they had the combo thing, you bought admission plus the concert ticket. There wasn't concert only type things, but I went to a number of them in the 1980s. I was at the first one with Air Supply in 1982, center stage, row 10, seat 4. So I still remember that, but, just a lot of, you just go through and just, many acts that are still, performing today that you could bring back. So I would say for Timberwolf, there's still a future for it. But the park would have to, be committed and want to make that part of the next year's offerings, and just make that part of it like they did in the 80s where it was, every Friday night there was a concert, it seemed like, in the summer of 82, 83, 84, 85, they would start at, end of June, go through July, early August. and you could count on it. Maybe on average of once a week, there was something going on there.
You know how I would do this if I could reopen the Timberwolf. Let's say I'm like the GM or whoever would make that call of Kings Island, and I could reopen the Timberwolf. In using the plan I was talking about, having your third eye blinds and your your bare naked ladies and stuff. What I would do is on a year that there's not going to be major capital the next year, like what are you going to ride your season pass sales on? I would market the season pass as unlimited visits, free parking, discounts on Timberwolf tickets. Like I would put that in as a benefit, and people like, oh, Timberwolf's coming back, and it'll create this buzz.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want it to overshadow your new. Well, I guess you could. It doesn't matter at that point if you overshadow your new ride if people are paying attention to season passes regardless. But that's how I would do it. I would drop it in there, the discounts, and people would think that they're sneaky by figuring out, oh, they're going to do concerts next year. But they, obviously you want them to figure that out on their own.
Right.
For those who care, they would figure it out. But
then you look at that piece of land and you just, the roller coaster enthusiast in me thinks of, oh, wow, that'd be a great place for, a dive coaster, a wing coaster, something like that there too. But now to answer the question, we always get off track a little bit there. I would not look into it not having anything there this year, meaning that its time is up.
Right. Yeah. We're not ready to see that yet. Okay. Well, thanks for the question. Have we talked about t-shirts yet? I don't think we have. Like we're twinning on our t-shirts, which are only $22, including shipping. It's got the Tower Topics logo, a podcast about Kings Island. You can wear it around the park. It's this beautiful blue color. It's like 3D. I made this image in Blender for those of you who are Blender fans. But shoot us a message on X at Tower_Topics. We'll make arrangements if you're interested in a shirt. $22. It includes shipping. We'll do the payment by Venmo. You send us the cash, and then we'll make arrangements for you to get the shirt. We'll ship it to you, included in the price. But hey, I'm Ryan Sir, along with Don Helbig, and this is Tower Topics.